And welcome everybody to the Huddle, KGUN 9's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pat, good afternoon. How are you?
Doing okay, Jason. Just doing okay.
All right. Well, that's better than the Arizona football team's doing. We're going to start with our Huddle poll
Yeah.
question here, and then we're going to get right to it. Do you have faith in Brent Brennan to turn this football season back around? Yes, bear down. No, I've seen enough. Or C, I'm on to the Arizona basketball season. Pat, what say you?
Well, the way you worded it, it's hard for me to go with A. It's
Why
because
not? If you've got
that
faith in this coach to turn it
that
around.
has like over the top faith. Yes, bear down. Don't worry. None of what we saw is real. The whole team's it's going to turn around, and the team we thought we'd see, we're going to see. I don't know that that's ever going to happen. No. Have I seen enough? That means you're giving up on Coach Brennan to me. And so I went with what we, until last year, our rally cry every year was, by late October, when does Arizona Hoops start up? That's what you and I always used to joke about until last season. And that was a rarity. So I went with C. When does Arizona Hoops start? I know the answer to that. We're less than 2 weeks away now from the tip of the season. And that's where my focus will eventually go anyway.
Yeah, and so why are you saying that? Because I feel badly for any alumni who had to sit through that garbage of a game on Saturday. They stunk up the joint at home against Colorado. In a word, they were uncompetitive. They can't run the ball. They can't get to the ball to McMillan. Okay, it looks like special teams didn't have a preseason. Okay, when the guy doesn't fall on the ball in the onside kick, when it was right there in front of them, the holder messes up the hold for Tyler Loop. They did not look good all game except for one drive, and they frankly have not looked good all season. And this has been a big disappointment, this 3-game losing streak for Arizona football.
Well, it's been disappointing. There's no question about that. I would agree that it was ugly, and I think that it's very frustrating for those of us who pay good money to go see this team and put that kind of performance out. But I do think there are reasons why, and I think it's a simple reason. The biggest reason of all being injuries. They've just been decimated on both sides of the ball.
Injuries happen to every team. Colorado didn't have Travis Hunter, the best player in college football, was barely on the field.
Not to this extent, and that's the problem. Is when you lose linemen, and then you have to put in guys that aren't ready for prime time play. They're not ready for prime time players. And then you've got a defense that's just absolutely decimated with all of their top players, pretty much all of their top players out with injury. I think, the result of that game Saturday was pretty predictable. You thought they'd be a little more competitive, maybe score a couple of touchdowns instead of just one. But yeah, I think this team is trending in the wrong direction, and now it's a bit of a free fall, Jason.
What hurts the most is this program has never had a player like Teteroa McMillan, and this player may never have a player like Teteroa McMillan again. And this is his last year. He's headed to the NFL after this. And to see this happen in his third junior and final year, when you have 3 potential first-round picks, what on earth is going to happen when they don't have these types of players on the field?
Well, I get my frustration for the offense lies in attached to that, Jason, and that is you have to find a way to get the ball to Teteroa McMillan. They did it a few times, but they did not do it consistently, and that's been the story since the first game of the season. They need to find creative ways and smart ways with the injuries they've got on the offensive line to protect Noah Fifita long enough to get Teteroa McMillan open. And I don't care what you say about, well, they're double teaming him. Guess what? They're not double teaming him off the line. There are ways, and they prove there are ways. He can beat the guy that's lined up straight ahead of him. So get the ball to him quickly instead of waiting for that safety to join in on the route and double team him. So my frustration really lies with the lack of imagination with the offensive play calling to find a way to get Teteroa McMillan the football. It's every week we hear we've got to get T-Mac the football. Well, then get him the football. Find ways. I just don't understand it.
So a lot of blame certainly on the head coach, on Brent Brennan in his first year. People expected more. A lot of people feel that this head coach is too soft. I indirectly asked that question to him yesterday, and the question that I asked to him, I went like this. There are some players who need a pat on the back. There are some who need to be left alone. They're best that way. And there's some who need a kick in the butt. Would you ever get into a guy's face, or is that not your personality or where this team is at? Here's Brett Brennan's answer to that question yesterday's news conference.
I have no trouble getting in anyone's face. That's not ever been a problem for me. I think it's important that you know exactly who you're doing that to, and are they someone that's going to respond the right way from that kind of stimulus? You know what I mean? I would say the generation that we're coaching right now struggles with that a lot more than maybe previous teams or previous generations that I've coached. I've been doing it a long time now. But every player is different. Every player responds differently to that kind of intensity.
Pat, Tommy Lloyd got in Kylan Boswell's face during a game earlier.
And look what happened. He played well for a game or two, and then he went into a swoon, and we never saw him come back, and then he transferred. So that's what Brent Brennan's talking about. You can only do so much. The personal accountability has to be there. So the players have to look at themselves and say, am I doing the best that I can to help my teammates and my football team succeed, and personally to help me succeed financially with NIL and help, and maybe to the next level if that's something you can do to go to the NFL. And I think he's exactly right. You've got a bunch of players that if you get in their face and embarrass them, they're done. You would have the opposite effect. To say that Brent Brennan is soft is just we don't know what's going on there. We don't know what the relationship he has with the players. We're speculating sometimes with this stuff, and we find out things. Remember when we thought that why am I forgetting the name of the tight end that we thought was Kean Burnett. So Kean Burnett, we're like, where's Kean Burnett? He hasn't been around since the first game, and then we can't come find out he's been banged up and he hasn't been playing a lot of snaps. And
but they should tell us that this lack of transparency is doing
that has nothing, good. Jason. That is another one of those fallacies that these Twitter media.
Part of a big picture, antiquated situation. It's like we have a coaching staff from a bygone era.
No, you're wrong. You just played a bite that shows that it's not a coaching staff from the bygone era. He realizes he can't yell at the players. He can't have that opportunity to embarrass them in front of the a TV audience and the 50,000 people at the stadium. He handles it differently. They handle the players' injuries differently as well. This is the way they do it. If you don't like it, then don't hire him. That's why I get back to Brent Brennan's not doing anything different than he did at San Jose State. So don't hire him if that's not what you want. If you want Rich Rod, find another Rich Rod. So go do that. But to blame this all on the head coach because he's not tough enough on the players or because he doesn't have an injury report put out, how does that impact the way they play a football game ever? Whether or not he told the media.
Concerned with things that don't matter, like letting the media.
He's not concerned with it. He doesn't even put it out.
Who's hurt?
He doesn't even put it out because he's not concerned with it.
Curtain going on now outside of the team's weight room. What are you putting a curtain outside of the team's weight room so nobody can see it when they walk in the lobby in the football facility? That just looks ridiculous. That's a bad look. It's a bad look for a team that obviously has got some strength and conditioning issues.
No, they don't, Jason, and that's where you're wrong. And I'm tired of this media sniping and snipping about, it's strength and conditioning. That's why they're having injuries. Name me one injury that was because of strength and conditioning.
I'm not saying the injury is because of strength and conditioning. I'm saying they're getting pushed up and down the field because of strength and conditioning. A Colorado player. Hey, Pat, you left the game in the third quarter. Let me tell you what happened. Because you left the game in the third quarter. I'm going to tell you what happened. A Colorado player picked up an Arizona player and threw him down like a rag ball.
I watched every second of the game, Jason.
Okay, well, then you saw that. You saw it.
And guess what? That means that guy's really strong. That means that guy's really strong.
Got pushed around.
And then now you're looking at, so don't mistake yourself for players aren't hitting the weight room hard enough, and it's the strength and conditioning coach's
No,
fault.
I don't think they are. Jed Fish
Versus,
was
can I
bragging
finish?
about
Can
600
I
pounds
finish, please?
plus.
Could I finish my thought, please? Don't mistake a player not being able to make a block or a tackle with a strength and conditioning problem. It has to do with a depth problem, and maybe the athlete isn't good enough. That's the difference. The strength and conditioning coach comes over from San Jose State after 1 year, and he spent 9 years at Stanford. He is a terrific strength and conditioning coach. And you can throw all these things at me that strength and conditioning coaches, you have to do it this way and you have to do it that way. He was at Stanford when they had players going to the NFL and they were winning Pac-12 titles, going to the Rose Bowl at Stanford. So Cullen Carroll is a terrific strength and conditioning coach. The reason I get so fired
That's
up
not
about
what
this,
Brent Brennan
Jason,
said. Brent Brennan said it needs to be reevaluated, strength and conditioning right now. This team has a strength and conditioning issue, and you're acting like they don't.
No, I'm not saying that they couldn't get better at it. What I'm saying is don't blame the strength and conditioning coach. Blame the athletes for not getting in there and doing the work that they have to do. The athletes need to do the work. It's still on them. They have to get the job done. And I get fired up about it, Jason, because my son is a strength and conditioning coach, and he's getting his master's so he can go coach at the collegiate level and professional level. And I can tell you one thing.
Arizona, they could probably use them.
No, not one single strength and conditioning coach is responsible for any of those injuries. And it's up to the players, and it's up to the coaching staff to recruit the players that can hit the weight room and can stop Colorado and not get flipped upside down. It's if the players aren't good enough, it's because there's a lack of depth right now. And I think that's where we're at with University of Arizona football is you get these injuries. And yes, you can say next man up, and that's what Brent Brennan says, but the next man up is just not good enough right now. That's the problem.
And the program has always been fragile. Okay. It did not take much.
Yeah.
It did not take much for an 8-game losing streak in 2016. And it did not take much for a 20-game losing streak from 2019 through back half of 2019 through part of 2021. We had a 20-game losing streak. Let's take a quick break here, just and look at a quick pause, not break, and look at our Huddle poll question and see what the fans are saying. I did see on X, on Twitter, it's getting a lot of votes here. And here is it: do you have faith in Brent Brennan to turn this football season back around? 12% say yes, 51% no, 37% are ready to see basketball season. Kind of about what I would have thought.
Yeah, well, me too. I think that's pretty fair, Berg. Actually, I didn't think yes would get 12%. I thought it'd be maybe single digits. But
and I actually think they're going to win this week. I think West Virginia is coming in also with injury situations. Their quarterback's hurt. Their left tackle's hurt.
Yeah.
The fan base wants that coach fired. Okay.
Well,
First ever be. By the way, let's just touch on this before we get to the basketball team. Brent Brennan is not getting fired. Okay.
No.
The only possible way, and this isn't going to happen. The only possible way he gets fired is if they lose this week to West Virginia, they lose every single week between here and the end of the season, and then they get blown out against ASU.
Well, yeah, we've seen that before.
Scenario,
yeah,
it could
we've
happen.
seen that before.
I don't think that's going to happen. I actually think they're going to beat West Virginia, and I think he's going to get a chance, not just for year two, but to build the program with his players.
That's exactly right.
Because guess what? They can't afford to fire him.
I was just going to say, let's be honest about this whole scenario to begin with. When Jed Fish left, the Arizona Athletic Department knew it was facing a mammoth budget deficit, right? And they knew what they could afford to spend on a head coach, and they got Brent Brennan.
Second lowest paid coach in Power 4.
And so that's why everybody has to take a pause. We're all extremely disappointed, angry, frustrated with how this season is playing out. Nobody expected us to see this program go from a 10-win season to, are they going to win 5 games? Maybe. But at the same time, Brent Brennan deserves a chance to at least build a program the way he wants. I pointed out in, I think, week 2 of this season, Jason, that I was seeing a problem with the players coming back, the Tetero McMillans and Fafitas and Manus, and the new coaching staff coming in and not wanting to upset anything. And it was almost like the inmates were running the asylum there. And I think they just haven't caught back up to being able to have the Brennan coaching staff really take charge and do it the way they want to do it. They deserve, time to have that happen. And I think that'll happen next year when most of these guys are gone. They're going to have to step up the recruiting, Jason. They're going to have to figure out a way to do it without Tetero and McMillan, because right now it's not going very well with Tetero and McMillan.
What I don't like, and this could segue us to basketball, what I don't like, Pat, is in my view, the football program has not looked good all season long, including that first game. In the 61-39 game, I don't even think they looked good in that way. It wasn't a team win. It was two guys playing throw and catch with Fafita and McMillan, with McMillan being single-teamed, no safety help, and the defender beat before the play starts by him falling down. Compare that to Tommy Lloyd in his first year, Pat, when we thought, oh, the team is going to go, 21 and 10, and all of a sudden we get to the season opener, we're like, whoa, wait a second here. This team looks really sharp. Arizona football never looks sharp. It never looks the way a Tommy Lloyd basketball team looks coming out of the gate.
Couple of differences, though. One is we overestimated how good this Arizona football team would be when they lost quite a few starters on defense. They lost a couple on offense, including a left tackle that's now in the NFL. And Arizona basketball, Tommy Lloyd got a couple of guys that knew who he was from Xavier and from Gonzaga and came over, and he had a pretty well-built team to begin with. I'm not making excuses because I love Tommy Lloyd, but Tommy Lloyd had a little bit more of a program build. He just needed to change a little of what he would say culture into the Arizona culture that he wanted to see, and he's done that for the most part.
By the way, the Eastern New Mexico game notes. Sorry, the Eastern New Mexico game notes had Tommy Lloyd as assistant coach 20 years at Grand Canyon yesterday in the Eastern.
Well, I had a Freudian slip with Sean Miller when I said Xavier, but yeah, Gonzaga.
No, I knew what you meant. I would have corrected if you did correct yourself. 117-54 over Eastern New Mexico in a preseason game. I think the surprise probably was Henry Vasar. He looks really good, and Tommy Lloyd had kind of mentioned that.
I'm sorry. Did you say what I think you said about Henry?
Henry Vasar looks good.
Really? Because I took a lot of stuff from you 2 years ago when I said I think this guy's going to be good. Just give him a couple of years.
What did I say otherwise?
A lot of people. You weren't real high on him.
Somebody else.
Let's
see how he does against better talent.
It's a preseason game. My point is,
Trey Townsend 20 points in the first half. And then the size, and this is what they need in the Big 12. Pat, Tommy Lloyd said he didn't construct his roster any differently because they're in the Big 12, but I don't know. Look at Toby Awaka. That's a Big 12 player.
No. You need guys like Awaka. You need guys that can handle themselves in a little bit of traffic and everything. Awaka is better than I thought he. I mean, it's granted we got to remember the competition, but he looks like he can handle himself really well. Coming out of Tennessee, and we knew Townsend would be pretty good. We saw him what he could do. The Horizon League Player of the Year coming out of Oakland. But I think you and I mentioned it yesterday, or I mentioned to you yesterday. It's if you look at this team, there are a lot of guys with not as much minutes that can go around. I think it's really going to be imperative on Tommy Lloyd, and he's the expert. He'll figure it out, but he's got to figure out how to manage the time. So, one of the best backcourts in all of college basketball, Jaden Brandley, Caleb Love, and KJ Lewis, they're going to get a lot of minutes, right? So now you got a forward spot and a center spot, and you got 4 or 5, 6 guys that can play those two spots. How are you going to distribute the minutes?
Well, not just that. I mean, are you going to go small with Del Orso in there?
Yeah, you could.
With those 3 guys in Del Orso, I think you'll see that line up a little bit. Can't forget about Conrad Martinez, who's going to have to get a few minutes, or he's transferring. And actually, this is something that Tommy Lloyd, look, he's done a terrific job in his time here. But if you had to look at the 2 things he hasn't done great, obviously the postseason record 4-3, but the other one is, playing a lot of guys, finding the right minutes. 2 years ago, he only played 7 guys because he didn't have faith in Adama Ball for whatever reason. And then he just kind of always constricts it to 8 guys. And
Yeah.
and if you don't have injuries and you're only playing 8 guys and you lose a few games, it can really kind of mess with the culture of a team. So I think that's something he's really got to look at here with how
Expand
many
that
guys
number
are
to
playing.
say 9, yeah, 9 guys at least, and they're gonna get in some bruising games in the Big 12, and you know, guys could get into foul trouble. So we'll see. I have faith. I think this roster is probably better than a lot of people thought, and maybe especially the outsiders as to why Arizona's picked 10th in the country. And I'm fine with that. I'm not saying they should be higher, but they maybe could be higher, and maybe they will be eventually. But it's also a brutal schedule, Jason. So,
Yeah, let's
you know,
take a look, by the way, at the pack at the Big 12. 5 teams in the AP top 10 for the Big 12. Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
yeah, and just saying, you know, you're going to be playing all these heavyweights as well, and these aren't just you know, everybody knows Kansas. Baylor's won a national championship in the last 5-6 years. We know that Houston now has become a real national power, but Iowa State has been good for 25 years for the most part. They have ups and downs occasionally, but there's nobody who's a bigger nemesis to Kansas than Iowa State. They beat each other on their home courts all the time. And I was talking to happened to be our general manager yesterday about this, and I basically said you have to hold home court in the Big 12, and then you have to win the games, you know, against a little bit lesser teams on the road in the Big 12, and then maybe knock off one of these on their home court. You beat an Iowa State at Hilton Coliseum. You beat somehow you find a way to knock off Kansas, upset them at Allen Fieldhouse. You do that, so you see what I'm saying, Jason. If you get, you say your 9 home games or wins, and then you get a few more, and you're all of a sudden you're up to 12, and maybe you knock one more off 13. Now all of a sudden you're looking at a 1 or a 2 seed again in the tournament, and you're sitting pretty near the top, if not at the top of the Big 12 standings. It's just a different way of looking at it than we've looked at it the last, say, 10 years in the Pac-12, where you lose 2 games in the Pac-12, you win the conference regular season. You're not going to lose just 2 games and win the conference. You're going to lose more games than that and still win the conference championship.
In Arizona, by the way, the 5th of those 5 teams ranked 10th. And, you know, we saw what happened with Houston in the tournament a few years ago. And, you know, that's the hope here, is that this battle tests them even more for
Exactly.
the NCAA tournament. It will help with the physical teams that they play. I don't know that's going to help with that team that's going to want to shoot 3-pointers over them. But it will help with the physical teams that they play in the tournament.
Well,
All right, let's finish up. Yeah, go ahead.
That's something to think about. It's something to work on, and I know you know, even Caleb Love has been challenged by Tommy Lloyd this year, coming back for his, you know, extra season that you only get. He's the last group that's going to get this COVID year, extra year, and he's challenged him not just on the offensive end about hitting his threes and shot selection, but challenge him to be even better defensively, because they've got to be in this new league. They have to be better defensively.
All right, we'll finish things up here with the Huddle poll question. Do you have faith in Arizona football coach Brent Brennan to turn this season back around? And still 12% with yes, but 48% down a little bit to no, I've seen enough, and 40%. So 88% are ready to move on. And Pat,
Yeah.
I think they're going to be hard pressed to get 30,000 fans in the building, and later this year.
Well, when that Friday night, the Friday night Houston game is looming as one of those that you might not get very many people to go to that game. I think it's an 8:15 start.
8:15 game, and fourth quarter is going to be between 11 o'clock and midnight. I don't think I think you're going to see and it might be cold. Listen, at night it gets cold here in Tucson.
Yep.
And November is the month where we get 4 seasons in one day, right?
There's no question.
It's summer at 2 o'clock. It's fall at 6 or 7 o'clock. It's winter first thing in the morning, and then it's spring at 11 a.m. That's my take on November in Tucson.
There's lots of memes that kind of you know, echo that.
It's 45 degrees to 80 degrees in one day, so it'll be in the low 50s, and it'll be a raw low 50s with no humidity. So
that's when we like the day games, and you know, then here comes Fox Sports 1 to put it on at 8:15 at night.
All right, Pat, good spirited chat, you know.
Good stuff, Jason.
And we'll be back. I do think they're going to beat West Virginia this week. We might have a little different discussion if they don't, but I do think they're going to bounce back. I think you got a lot of character guys on the team. I don't think it's a good West Virginia team. And I think they're going to bounce back and have a win, but we'll see.
Well, real quick. Let's not Colorado. Let's watch them and see what happens now. We may have seen the corner turn for Colorado this year, like we saw the Wildcats turn the quarter when they beat Colorado last year. So let's just see.
Well, they need a healthy Travis Hunter. I mean,
they do. They do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have some viewer comments that I missed?
We had a couple.
Okay. I had it on the wrong thing. Okay. I love it when they banter. Okay, see, people like it when we
there's one. Love it when they banter.
Our Twitter fan base is toxic. Listen, it's nothing to do with Arizona fan. Listen, every fan base. Look, the West Virginia fan base wants that guy their coach driven out the door. This is in San Diego. He needs to get more energy. We need to get more energy from a coach. Hey, listen, when you're not doing well, some flaws are going to be or perception of flaws that he's not tough enough. I'm not saying he is tough enough. I'm saying there can be that perception there because he's such a nice guy. Still have time to turn it around. I don't think they've got that much time to turn it around. I mean, that's got to be done now. If we fire him, we'll probably end up in a worse situation. Financially, you will be. Okay.
Yeah, it can't happen.
After the season, T-Mac is gone, NFL bound, lesson learned, get that money, look out for yourself. Listen, he should have only been here 3 years to begin with. This is a 3-year player. He deserves to be in the NFL next year. It's not about him bailing or anything like that. He deserves to be in the NFL next year.
Yeah, and 857 Tucson, thanks. We love that you love the show.
Yeah, thanks for the comments. I'm sorry. Good stuff. I'm sorry I didn't read these comments earlier. I missed them. I was on the wrong page, but yeah, keep them coming next week. We appreciate it, and I'm glad that people like it when we get a little when we have different opinions. Nothing was more fun. Kind of looking back on it when DeAndre Ayton was stinking it up against the Bucks. I feel like, Pat, a few years later, I was right. And it wasn't just you. I was listening to one of the talk shows, and they were defending Ayton. I wanted to call up and be like, man, we were watching a different game.
Yeah, you say that, Jason, but I still get back to the Suns haven't been as good since. And I'm not saying it was all Ayton. There was something about that team that
salary cap
they were
just. Listen, that story for another time.
They were just that close, and it was with him that they were just that close. But
all right, we got to leave it there. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. This has been the Huddle, King of Nine's weekly streaming sports talk show. We'll be right back here next Tuesday. Hope you join us.